Welcome to another exploration into the darker corners of Greece history. Stories that remain as mysterious as they are unsettling. Before we begin, take a moment to let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what time of day or night this narration has reached you. It's always intriguing to see how far these accounts travel and when they find their audience. With that said, let's journey back into the past. The oracle's stones warned of this. 13 moons ago, when the priestess cast them upon the temple floor, they formed a pattern no living soul had seen. The shape of a body torn in 7 directions, each piece reaching toward a center that should not exist. She burned the stones that night. But the pattern remained. Magistrate Theron of Epidaurus lies in the Valley of Forgotten Names, his blood soaking into earth that has drunk the deaths of 10,000 warriors. And he cannot remember his own face. Not because of injury, because he has 7 faces. Now, stitched to his skull with thread made from something that was never animal, never plant, never anything that grew beneath the sun. His chest is open, spread like the pages of a forbidden text. And inside, where one heart should beat, there are many, pulsing, synchronized, belonging to men who died in battles fought before his grandfather's grandfather drew breath. Around him, arranged in circles that mirror the stars no astronomer dares to chart, stand the changed ones. 367 of them. Some he knows, merchants from the agora, farmers from the hillsides, the blacksmith who made his sword. Some he does not. Warriors in armor styles that predate the first temples, wearing the insignia of kingdoms that exist in no historian's record. Some are barely held together, bone and desiccated sinew, stitched into the approximation of human form. But all of them are watching, with eyes that do not blink, with breath that moves in perfect unison, with a consciousness that is one and many and hungry. And at the center of the circle, kneeling in mud that was once the blood of armies, the stitcher continues his work. His name was Asclepion once, physician, healer, the most skilled practitioner of the medical arts in all of Hellas. But that was before the war, before he learned what persists in flesh after the soul departs, before he discovered the threads that connect the living and the dead. His own chest bears the evidence of his knowledge. Opened to the sternum, organs from a dozen different bodies visible and functioning, held in place by those impossible threads that shine like spider silk in moonlight, but cut like bronze in daylight. He is assembling something, a body, but not a body, a vessel, 12 cubits tall, made from the pieces of 100 warriors, each selected for strength, for vitality, for the force of will they possessed in life. And in the hollow where its heart should be, Asclepion is weaving something else, something made from the whispers between heartbeats, the silence after the final breath, the space where souls linger when they refuse to cross the river. Magistrate, Asclepion says without turning. His voice is wrong, layered like a chorus, speaking with the tongues of all those he has stitched into himself. You honor us with your presence. We have been waiting for you. Theron tries to speak, but his throat carries the vocal cords of 3 different men, and they cannot agree on which words to form. What emerges is a sound no human mouth should make. Asclepion smiles with lips borrowed from a drowned sailor. Do not struggle, he says. The integration is nearly complete. Soon you will understand. Soon you will feel what we feel, the joy of being whole again, of being more than the scattered fragments the gods condemned us to become. He returns to his work, his needle, carved from the finger bone of an oracle who saw too much, moving with inhuman precision. The vessel's eyes open, all 20 of them, borrowed from 20 different faces, and they see. One more thread, Asclepion whispers. One more connection, and the boundary will dissolve. The living and the dead will be woven together, and we will become what the gods themselves fear. The needle descends toward Theron's chest, pierces skin, begins to pull. And Theron screams with mouths that are not his own. If you enjoy stories that crawl under your skin and stay there, this channel is your new home. Subscribe. The darkness is just getting started. Demetrios the shepherd finds the body on the third day of Anthesterion, in the creek that runs behind the olive grove, sacred to Athena. He is 62 summers old and has walked these hills since he could walk at all. He has seen drought and flood, plague and prosperity, the armies of Athens marching north and the armies of Sparta marching south. But he has never seen this. The body floats face down in the shallows, arms spread wide, positioned with a precision that speaks of human hands, not the random cruelty of drowning. Demetrios approaches slowly, his staff ready, though what he thinks he might fight, he cannot say. The dead man is Philippos, day laborer, drinker, known to sleep rough when the wine takes him. But Philippos has been missing for 6 days, and when Demetrios reaches down to turn the body, thinking he will need to fetch the magistrate, already rehearsing his report, his hand touches the back, and he jerks away as if burned. Because Philippos's back is stitched, not the neat work of a physician closing a wound. These are thick, crude, black threads that look like they belong in a tanner's workshop, running up both sides of the spine in perfectly parallel lines. Demetrios's hands shake as he grabs the shoulder, pulls. The body rolls, and he staggers backward, his breakfast rising in his throat. More stitches. Across the chest in patterns that make no sense. Horizontal, vertical, spiraling, like someone practicing their craft on dead flesh. Around both wrists, binding them. Across the throat, like a collar. But these stitches are not closing wounds. They are holding something inside. Demetrios can see it. Beneath the skin. Something moving, shifting, pulsing. An organ that should not be there. The wrong size, the wrong shape, pressing against the stitches from within. And as Demetrios watches, frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe, one stitch snaps, the skin parts, and something gray and wet pushes through the gap. It is not human. It is not animal. It is something between. Demetrios runs, does not stop until he reaches the agora, until he is pounding on the door of Magistrate Theron's house. The words tumbling out. Body in the creek, stitches, something moving. Philippos is dead but not dead. We need help. We need the physician. And that is when Demetrios realizes. They already have a physician, Asclepion, the healer who came to Epidaurus after the war. The man with hands so skilled they say he learned his art from the god himself. The man who can stitch a wound so perfectly you cannot see the scar. Theron is screaming. The needle pulls through his flesh, not cutting, but weaving, threading something invisible through the meat of his body. He can feel it. The invasion. Something cold and ancient and other flowing through those threads into his blood, his bones, his very pneuma. He can hear voices now. Not in his ears, in his mind. Hundreds of them. Thousands. All speaking at once, overlapping, merging into one voice that is somehow all of them together. We were broken, shattered by war, by violence, by deaths that came before our time. And we have been waiting in Erebus, in the darkness between the river Styx and the world of light. Waiting for someone to give us form again, waiting for a physician skilled enough to stitch us back into existence. Theron tries to close his eyes. But they are not his eyes anymore. Some belong to a warrior who died at Marathon, some to a plague victim from the time of Pericles, some to men whose names have been erased from all records. And through these borrowed eyes, he sees the vessel rising. 12 cubits of stitched flesh standing upright on legs that should not support such weight. Its chest, open like a sacrificial altar, glowing with an inner light that has nothing to do with fire. Its mouths, 7 of them, speaking in unison. We are the space between. We are the threshold. We are the door opening. And Asclepion is laughing, with joy, with relief, with the madness of a man who has achieved the impossible. Yes, he says. Yes, you are. You are real. You are. Theron stands in the temple of Asclepios, a small sanctuary on the edge of town where the dead are prepared for burial, and stares at what used to be Philippos. The priest, old Cleomenes, stands beside him, clutching his ceremonial staff so tightly his knuckles have gone white. We should not have opened it, Cleomenes whispers. We had to see, Theron replies. They had to see, and now they cannot unsee. Inside Philippos's chest cavity, exposed by the knife Cleomenes had used with trembling hands, are organs that do not belong. A second heart, smaller than a man's, gray, covered in a film of something that might be preservative oil, but it is beating, slow, arrhythmic, but beating. How long has Philippos been dead? Theron asks. 6 days, perhaps 7. And how long since this heart last beat? Cleomenes does not answer. Because they both know. This surgery, if it can be called that, is fresh. Done within the last day. Perhaps within the last few hours. But Philippos has been dead for nearly a week. Theron forces himself to look closer. There are other, foreign elements. Sections of lung tissue grafted onto Philippos's own lungs, different color, different texture, stitched in place with those black threads. A mass of what looks like brain matter, woven through the chest cavity in delicate strands, connecting to the spine, to the heart, to organs that should not communicate. And strangest of all, it is all still warm. Call the town, Theron says quietly. Everyone. I need to know who has visited Asclepion in the last year. Cleomenes' face goes pale. Magistrate, now priest. But everyone has visited him? You know this. He is the only physician for 5 leagues, every broken bone, every fever, every... Then make a list of everyone. A voice from the doorway. That will not be necessary, magistrate. Theron turns. 3 women stand there. The baker's wife, Nico. The merchant's daughter, Thalia. The widow who tends the sacred grove, Callisto. All 3 stare at him with eyes that do not blink. All 3 speak in perfect unison. We need to see Asclepion. Several of us. We are not feeling well. Theron's hand moves to his sword. How many of you? Silence. Then, 43. A pause. So far? The vessel is walking. Each step shakes the ground, not from weight, but from the power concentrated in that impossible body. 367 changed ones move with it, synchronized. One consciousness distributed across hundreds of bodies. And Theron. Theron is being dissolved. He can feel his individual identity fragmenting, pieces of his memory, his will, his very self being pulled into the collective. He can feel them inside him. The warrior who died at Thermopylae, who still remembers the heat of the sun on bronze. The child who drowned in the earthquake of Helike, who still tastes salt water. The physician who tried to treat plague victims in Athens and caught the disease himself, who still feels fever burning in veins that no longer exist, all of them, sharing his flesh, sharing his consciousness, erasing him. No, Theron tries to say. But 47 voices speak instead. Yes, this is completion, this is wholeness. This is what it means to never be alone again. And through his fragmenting awareness, he sees the vessel reaching the center of the valley. The place where 10,000 warriors died in a single battle whose name has been struck from every record. The place where the boundary between the living world and Erebos is thinnest. Asclepion kneels there, his needle ready, his final thread prepared. One more stitch, one more connection, and the door will open completely, and everything waiting in the darkness will flood through. Asclepion's home sits at the edge of Epidaurus, backing against the forest where shepherds will not take their flocks because the wolves there are too large, and their eyes reflect torchlight wrong. It was abandoned when he arrived. The previous owner had died in the plague, childless, with no one to claim the property. Asclepion purchased it for 3 drachma. From the outside, it looks humble, respectable. A small house with a workshop attached where he practices his craft. But inside, Theron pushes open the door. Asclepion has not answered his summons, has not been seen in the agora for 3 days. And the smell hits him first. Myrrh, cedar oil, and something else. Something organic and wrong that makes the back of his throat itch. The main room is a physician's workshop. Neat, professional. Clay jars labeled with herbs and compounds. Bronze instruments polished and organized. Medical texts scrolled and stacked. All exactly as it should be. But the back room... Theron opens the door and stops breathing. The room is lined with clay vessels. Large amphorae, the kind used for storing wine or grain. But these are filled with something else. Theron approaches the nearest one, looks inside. Organs, preserved in cedar oil, hearts, lungs, kidneys, sections of liver and spleen. Some look fresh, pink, and healthy. Others are gray, diseased, clearly removed from bodies long dead. Each amphora has a marking scratched into the clay. Subject 7, male, 34 summers. Heart, integrated. Subject 12, female, 28 summers. Lung, rejected, deceased. Subject 3, male, 41 summers. Brain matter, responsive. Responsive? Theron whispers. He moves to the next vessel. And the next. Dozens of them. Hundreds of preserved organs. All labeled with the same precise notation. All marked with one word that makes his blood run cold. Integrated. On a table, half hidden under a cloth, Theron finds tablets. Wax and wooden tablets covered in Asclepion's small, precise handwriting. Medical notes, observations, experiments. Theron reads. Subject 4 continues to show integration. The transplanted heart tissue has successfully bonded with the host's vital energies. Pulse irregular, but sustained. Subject reports sensation of duality, awareness of both his own pneuma and fragmented memories from the donor tissue. Hypothesis: the psyche may persist in flesh, even after the body's death. Further observation required. Theron's hands are shaking. He flips through more tablets. The entries become increasingly detailed. Asclepion isn't just transplanting organs. He is trying to transplant souls. The tablets document dozens of procedures. Patients who came for routine healing and left with pieces of other people inside them. Hearts that carry memories. Lungs that remember breathing patterns the host never learned. Brain tissue that whispers in voices the patients do not recognize. And the success rate. The success rate is improving. Early subjects died within days, but later subjects survived for weeks, months, until something else happened, until they began to change. Theron finds the second set of tablets hidden in a locked chest. These are different, less clinical, more personal. The handwriting is shakier, more desperate. They are not dying anymore. This should be progress. But they are not truly living either. They have become something else. Subject 9 stopped eating 3 weeks ago. Still walks, still breathes. But his eyes are empty of himself. Full of something other. I can see it moving behind his gaze. Learning, waiting. Another tablet. Subject 11 spoke to me yesterday. Not with words, with thoughts placed directly into my mind. She knew things about the donors, things about me, things I have never spoken aloud. How does dead tissue remember? How does it think? And then, the final entry. Scratched into the wax just yesterday. I understand now. I thought I was healing them. Thought I was defeating death through knowledge and skill. But I was not creating life. I was creating thresholds. Empty spaces where something else could enter. And something has been waiting in Erebos, waiting for a physician skilled enough to open the door. A sound behind him. Theron spins, his sword half drawn. A figure in the doorway. Nico, the baker's wife. But wrong. Her head tilted at an unnatural angle, her eyes reflecting the lamplight like a wolf's. Magistrate, she says with that layered voice. You should not have come here. You should not have seen this. Where is Asclepion? Theron demands. He is preparing. Preparing what? Nico smiles, and behind her, more figures appear. Thalia, Callisto, the blacksmith, the merchant. Farmers Theron has known since childhood. All of them standing in perfect synchronization, all of them stitched. The final vessel, they say in unison. The one large enough to hold all of us. All of the fragments who have been waiting since the Great War. Since the battle that killed 10,000 in a single day and tore the boundary between worlds. What battle? Theron says. No such battle exists in our records. Because the victors erased it. They reply. Because what happened in that valley was an abomination, an opening, a wound in reality itself that has never healed. And now Asclepion is going to use it, to bring us all through, to give us flesh again. Theron backs toward the window. How many? He asks. How many of you are there? The changed ones tilt their heads in unison. In this town, 43. A pause. In the valley, 367. Another pause. Waiting in Erebos to cross through once the vessel is complete? They smile. Thousands. The final stitch goes through. Theron feels it, not in his body because he does not have a body anymore, not really. He is distributed now. Parts of him in 47 different changed ones. Parts of him in the vessel itself. Parts of him dissolving into the collective consciousness that spans the boundary between life and death. But one fragment, one small, stubborn fragment, remains himself. And that fragment watches as the vessel's chest closes, the stitches pull tight. The hearts inside, all 53 of them, begin beating in perfect unison. And the door opens. Not a physical door, a threshold. Theron can see it with senses that have nothing to do with eyes. A tear in the fabric of the world, leading down into Erebos, into the realm of shadows and whispers, where the dead wait, where fragments of consciousness cling to the memory of flesh, where things that were never human have been watching the living world with hunger that spans millennia. And they are coming through, pouring into the vessel like wine into an amphora, filling it, animating it, giving it thoughts and will and purpose. The vessel's eyes, all 20 of them, open wide. Its mouth speak. We are the threshold made flesh. We are the door that walks. We are the bridge between. And Asclepion kneels before it. tears streaming down his face, his chest, still split open, his stolen organs pulsing with borrowed life. "You are beautiful," he whispers. "You are perfect." The vessel looks down at him, at the physician who made this possible, at the broken man who thought he could stitch the world back together. And it reaches out with hands made from the fingers of 100 warriors, touches Asclepion's face, and begins to pull. Theron dives through the window, hits the ground, rolls, comes up running. Behind him, the changed ones pour through Asclepion's door, not chasing, herding, driving him toward something, toward the valley. Theron knows these streets, has walked them his entire life. He runs toward the temple of Athena, sacred ground, protected ground. Surely they cannot follow there. But when he arrives, he finds the priestess standing in the doorway, waiting, her chest bearing fresh stitches beneath her robes, her eyes reflecting torchlight, wrong. "The gods cannot help you, magistrate," she says, with that chorus voice. The gods turned away from this long ago, when the battle opened the wound, when 10,000 pneuma were ripped from their flesh in a single moment of violence so profound, it scarred reality itself. Theron backs away, runs toward the agora. The marketplace is full of people. Surely not all of them can be changed. Surely some remain untouched. But as he enters the square, they turn to look at him, all of them, in perfect unison. Merchants and customers, beggars and citizens, the children playing knucklebones, all of them, all stitched. "How long?" Theron gasps. "How long has this been happening?" 4 years, they reply in unison. "Since Asclepion came to us after the war, since he began his great work. Small surgeries at first, tiny amounts of tissue harvested from the living and the dead, building his collection, piece by piece, stitch by stitch, creating the network that would allow us to manifest." "Why?" Theron demands. "Why do you want to cross over? You had your time in the sun. You died. Accept it." The changed ones tilt their heads. "You do not understand death, magistrate. You think it is an ending, a peaceful crossing of the river. But for some of us, for those who died violently, suddenly, wrongly, there is no peace. There is only the space between, the waiting, the cold, the loneliness of existing without form, without flesh, without the ability to touch or feel or be." They take a step forward. "We do not want revenge. We do not want destruction. We just want to exist again, to be whole. Is that so terrible?" And Theron almost believes them, almost pities them, until he sees it. The child in the corner, maybe 8 summers old, staring at him with eyes that contain the memories of someone who died at Thermopylae, someone who has been dead for nearly 200 years, someone who has taken over this child's flesh and consciousness and identity. "You are parasites," Theron says quietly. "You are erasing the living to give yourselves form." "We are sharing," they correct, merging, becoming more than either alone. The living gain memories of ages past. The dead gain flesh to inhabit. It is symbiosis. It is abomination. The changed one's expressions do not change. "Then you will not help us willingly," they say. "Never. Unfortunate. Asclepion hoped you would understand. You are strong, magistrate. Healthy. Your organs would be valuable additions to the vessel." They close in from all sides. Theron draws his sword, bronze blade blessed by the priests, carried through 3 campaigns, never failed him. He swings. The blade cuts through the baker's wife, deep, severing muscle and bone. She stumbles, but does not fall, just looks down at the wound with curiosity. "We do not die, magistrate," she says. "We are already dead." Theron swings again, takes the blacksmith's arm off at the shoulder. The limb falls. The blacksmith keeps walking, picks up his severed arm with his remaining hand, and reattaches it, those black threads writhing like living things, stitching muscle to muscle, bone to bone, without any hands guiding them. The threads are not just sutures, the changed ones explain. They are the door itself, made manifest, given form. They connect us all, living and dead, past and present, and they cannot be cut. Theron runs, not toward safety, there is none, toward the one place he might find answers, toward the valley of forgotten names. Asclepion is being unmade. The vessel has its hands inside the physician's chest, literally inside, fingers wrapped around those stolen organs, and is pulling them out. Not violently, gently, almost tenderly, like harvesting fruit. And as each organ is removed, Asclepion becomes less. His memories fragment, his identity dissolves. His pneuma, already distributed across the network, already shared with thousands of others, scatters completely. He does not scream, he laughs, because he is getting what he wanted, completion. He is becoming part of the whole. No longer Asclepion the physician, no longer the broken man who could not save the dying. Just part of the collective, part of the bridge, part of the door. And through Theron's fragmenting awareness, he sees the vessel incorporating Asclepion's organs into itself, growing larger, more complex, more real. And behind it, the door in reality grows wider, and things begin to cross through. Not souls of dead humans, something else. Something that has been waiting in Erebos since before humans existed. Something that feeds on the space between life and death. Something that has been patient. And now it has form. Now it has flesh. Now it can cross. The path to the valley is steep. Theron climbs as the sun sets behind him, casting long shadows through the ancient pines. He can hear them behind him, following, not rushing. They have time, all the time in the world. The valley appears as he crests the ridge, a bowl of scarred earth, maybe 2 stadia across, ringed by shattered trees and rusted weapons half buried in soil that has drunk more blood than rainwater. No historian speaks of this place. No poet sings of the battle fought here. Even the name has been erased. But Theron can feel it. The wrongness, the wound in the world that never healed. And in the center of the valley, kneeling in mud that was once blood, Asclepion works on his masterpiece. The vessel. It is nearly complete. 12 cubits tall, maybe more. A giant assembled from pieces of hundreds of warriors, each section carefully selected, each connection precisely stitched. Arms like tree trunks, legs that could support a building, a torso woven from the flesh of champions, and the head. The head is a horror of surgical precision. 7 faces merged into one, each retaining enough individual features to be recognizable, but together forming something new, something that has never existed, something that should not exist. Theron descends into the valley, his sword ready, his heart pounding. Asclepion looks up and smiles. "Magistrate Theron," he says with that layered voice, "I am pleased you came. I was worried the others might damage you on the journey. I need you intact." "This ends, Asclepion," Theron calls out. "I destroyed your collection. I burned your house. Your network is broken." The physician shakes his head. "The collection was just storage, Magistrate. Convenient, but not necessary. The network does not exist in the organs. It exists in me. I am the living anchor, the consciousness that binds all the dead pieces together, the bridge between flesh and pneuma." He touches his own chest, spread open like an offering, showing the mass of foreign organs stitched into his torso. And once the vessel is complete, I will pour myself into it. All of myself, all of them. All of the fragments collected over 4 years of careful work. And we will become something new. Something that transcends death. Something beautiful. You will become a monster, Theron says. Asclepion's smile fades. I will become whole. Do you know what it is like, Magistrate, to be broken? To spend years in military camps watching men die from wounds you cannot heal? To hold someone's hand as they beg you to save them and knowing you cannot? To feel useless, impotent, a failure at the one thing you trained your entire life to do? His voice cracks. I could set bones, stitch wounds, amputate limbs, but I could not make them whole again, could not restore what war destroyed, until I discovered this. He gestures to the vessel. The pneuma does not fully depart at death. Fragments remain, in the organs, in the tissue, cellular memory that persists even when the body fails. And if you can preserve that tissue, if you can transplant it into a living host, those fragments can be reawakened, given form again, given life. You are not giving them life, Theron says. You are making them parasites. They are erasing the living to inhabit their flesh. They are merging, becoming more than either alone. And when the vessel is complete, when I stitch together enough fragments, enough pieces, enough connections, we will create something unprecedented. A collective consciousness that spans the boundary between life and death. A new form of existence, evolution through surgery. Theron raises his sword. I am ending this. He charges. Asclepion does not move, does not defend himself. Just watches with those ice-blue eyes as Theron crosses the distance, raises the blade, brings it down. And the changed ones intercept. All 367 of them, emerging from the tree line where they had been waiting, surrounding the valley, closing in. They grab Theron, dozens of hands, all moving in perfect coordination, and bear him to the ground. No, Asclepion says gently. Not yet. I need him for the final connection. He returns to his work, the needle in his hand, carved from oracle bone, threaded with those impossible black threads, moves with inhuman precision. Final stitches, last connections, binding the vessel together, making it real. And as Theron struggles, as he fights against the hands holding him, he sees the vessel's eyes beginning to move beneath closed lids, its chest beginning to rise and fall, its fingers beginning to curl. It is waking. And when it does, when it opens its eyes and draws its first breath, the door will be complete, and everything waiting in Erebos will flood through. The vessel stands. Theron feels it through the network, feels those 12 cubits of stitched flesh rising, feels the power concentrating in muscles borrowed from heroes, feels the consciousness igniting in a brain assembled from the thoughts of thousands. It takes a breath. All 53 hearts beat in synchronization, all 20 eyes open, and it sees. Not just the valley, not just the changed ones surrounding it. It sees everything. The world of the living and the world of the dead, simultaneously. Every human currently alive in Hellas, their pneuma shining like candles. Every human who has died since the first temples were built. Their fragments scattered through Erebos like dust. And the door between them. The wound opened by the battle of 10,000 deaths. Now widened to a chasm. Now stable, now permanent. Things pour through, not human, never human, entities that exist in the space between heartbeats. Consciousness without form, without origin, without purpose except to consume the pneuma of the living and use their flesh as vessels. They have been waiting in Erebos since before recorded time, waiting for an opening large enough, waiting for a bridge strong enough, waiting for a fool desperate enough to open the door. And Asclepion has given them everything they need. The vessel turns its 20 eyes toward him, opens its 7 mouths, and speaks with a voice that is not the chorus of dead humans, but something older, something that learned to speak by listening to the prayers of the dying. Thank you, physician. You have served your purpose. You have opened the way. You have given us flesh. Asclepion's face, what remains of it, goes pale. No, he whispers. No, you are not. This was not. I made you for the dead. For the humans who died wrongly, not for... Did you think, the vessel says, that only human consciousness lingers in death? That only human pneuma clings to existence beyond the body? Foolish mortal. We are the original fragments. We are what existed in Erebos before the first human died. We are hunger given awareness. We are the void learning to think. And you have given us a door large enough to cross. It reaches out and begins pulling Asclepion apart, not killing him, unmaking him, thread by thread, stitch by stitch, and Theron feels himself being pulled into the vessel, feels his pneuma being woven into its mass consciousness, becoming part of the door, part of the bridge, part of the invasion. Before Theron descended into the valley, before he saw the vessel, before he understood what Asclepion had truly created, he went to the oracle, not the famous oracle at Delphi, too far, and he had no time, but the lesser oracle who lived in the caves above Epidaurus, the blind woman who spoke prophecies that were always true but never clear until after they had come to pass. Her name was Eretha. She was 93 summers old and had been blind since birth. But she saw more than any sighted person. Theron found her in her cave, surrounded by smoke from burning herbs, the walls covered in symbols no scholar could read. "Magistrate," she said before he could speak, "you come seeking knowledge of the Stitcher. You know what he is doing? I know what he is becoming, what he is creating. I saw it in the stones 13 moons ago, a pattern of division, of fragmentation, of doors opening that should remain sealed. Can it be stopped?" Eretha was silent for a long moment. Then, all doors can be closed, but the closing requires sacrifice. The door was opened with threads that bind the living and the dead. It can only be closed the same way. I don't understand. You will. She reached into the smoke, pulled out a small object, a needle, not carved from bone like Asclepion's. This one was made from something that looked like volcanic glass but moved in the firelight, shifting colors, reflecting things that were not there. "This is from before the gods," Eretha said. "From the time when the boundary between worlds was new and fragile. It can cut the threads that should not exist. But it requires a price." "What price?" "The one who wields it must become the anchor, must take Asclepion's place, must hold the door closed from inside. Forever." Theron's blood ran cold. "You mean, to close the door, you must become part of it, must allow yourself to be stitched into the boundary, must distribute your pneuma across the network so that your will, your living will, can hold it shut against everything trying to cross. That is not a price. That is damnation." Eretha smiled sadly. "Yes, but it is the only way. Asclepion opened the door because he could not accept being broken, could not accept that some things cannot be healed. You must close it by accepting the opposite. that some things cannot be saved except through absolute sacrifice. She pressed the needle into his hand. It was cold, colder than metal should be, and when Theron looked at it, he could see things moving in its surface, reflections of the door, of Erebos, of the space between. "I will not do it," he said. "Then the door will remain open. The entities will cross. They will inhabit every living body in Hellas, in time, in all the world. The living will become hosts for the dead, for the ancient, for things that have no names. And humanity will be replaced." Theron stared at the needle. "There must be another way." "There is always another way," Eretha agreed. "You could run. Let someone else deal with it. Let future generations face the consequences of Asclepion's work. You would have perhaps 20 years before the entities spread beyond Epidaurus. Enough time to live a life, to have children, to die peacefully in your bed. And leave them to face this? Many men would." Theron closed his fist around the needle. "I am not many men." Eretha nodded. I know. That is why the stones showed me you. Why, of all the people in Epidaurus, you are the one who will make the choice." "Some choice. The most important choices never feel like choices. They feel like inevitabilities. But they are choices nonetheless." Theron stood to leave. Eretha called after him. "Magistrate, one more thing." "Yes. When you become the anchor, when you distribute yourself across the network, you will not be alone. You will carry all of them with you. All of the human fragments Asclepion collected. They are victims too, trapped by his ambition, forced to serve as bridges for things they do not understand. If you close the door, you save them as well." "Save them how? They will still be dead. But they will be able to cross, to reach the true afterlife beyond Erebos, the place the door has been blocking them from reaching. You will free them, Theron, all of them." He nodded and left the cave. And now he lies in the valley, surrounded by changed ones, watching Asclepion complete the vessel. And in his hand, hidden beneath his body, he can feel it. The oracle's needle, cold, ancient, waiting. The vessel's first words are not to Asclepion. They are to Theron. It turns those 20 borrowed eyes toward him, opens those 7 mouths, and speaks. "Magistrate, you carry something that does not belong in this time. Something old. Something that could harm us." Theron's blood freezes. "Give it to us. Give us the oracle's needle, and we will make your transition peaceful. You will barely feel yourself being absorbed. It will be like falling asleep." "No," Theron says. The vessel tilts its massive head. "No? You would choose pain? Choose to feel your identity fragment? Choose to experience your pneuma being pulled apart thread by thread? I would choose to stay myself as long as possible." The vessel is silent for a moment. Then it laughs, all 7 mouths opening wide, a sound like wind through a tomb. How noble, how human. You cling to individuality even as it fails you, even as it traps you in weakness and solitude. We offer you completion. We offer you connection to thousands. We offer you existence beyond death. And you refuse. I refuse to become you. You refuse to become more than you. I refuse to stop being me. The vessel considers this. Then it nods to the changed ones. Begin his integration. They lift Theron, carry him toward the vessel. Asclepion is there, his needle ready, those black threads prepared. His hands are shaking now. His face, what remains of it after the vessel's partial consumption, shows something that might be regret. "I am sorry, Magistrate," he says quietly. "I truly thought this would be beautiful. Thought I was saving them, saving all the broken fragments who could not find peace. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. Then stop, Theron says. Help me end this. I cannot. I am already part of it. My pneuma is distributed through the network. If I stop, if I resist, it will simply use another. Use one of the changed ones. My skills, my knowledge, are already shared with all of them. Then, there is no Asclepion anymore. No, there is only the bridge, and soon, there will only be the door. The needle descends toward Theron's chest. Theron's hand moves, fast, faster than he has ever moved. He pulls the oracle's needle from beneath his body, swings it upward, and drives it into Asclepion's wrist. The effect is immediate. The threads connecting Asclepion to the network, those invisible lines of consciousness and pneuma, become visible. Black lines running from his body to every changed one in the valley, to the vessel itself, to the door behind it, and the oracle's needle. The oracle's needle cuts, not physically, metaphysically, severing connections, breaking bonds, unweaving the network one thread at a time. Asclepion screams, the changed ones scream, the vessel screams, all of them connected, all of them feeling the same agony as their shared consciousness is ripped apart. Theron doesn't stop. He pulls the needle out of Asclepion's wrist and drives it into his own chest, into his heart, and he pushes, not outward, inward, pushing his pneuma, his living, willing, resisting pneuma, into the network, becoming the new anchor, becoming the bridge, becoming the door's seal. He can feel them all now. Every human fragment Asclepion ever harvested, every soul trapped in the network, every consciousness held in dead flesh, hundreds of them, thousands, all crying out in relief as Theron's living will pulls them free from the entities trying to use them as vessels. And Theron pulls harder, uses the oracle's needle like a fisherman's hook, drags the human fragments out of the network, away from the entities, toward freedom, toward the true afterlife beyond Erebos. The door begins to close. The vessel claws at its own chest, trying to hold it open. But Theron is the anchor now. His will is the seal, and he refuses to let it stay open. The entities scream, not with voices, with the absence of sound, with the void learning to express rage. They fight him, try to overwhelm his consciousness with their ancient hunger, try to fragment his identity the way they fragmented everyone else. But Theron holds, because he made a choice, and because the human fragments are helping him. All those victims of Asclepion's experimentation, all those people who just wanted to be whole again, they lend him their strength, their memories, their will to cross over. Together they are stronger than the entities. Together they can close the door. The vessel begins to collapse, its stitches unraveling, its borrowed organs failing, its consciousness, that amalgamation of human souls and ancient entities, fragmenting. Asclepion falls to his knees, his chest cavity empty now, his organs dissolved, his life ending. Finally. Thank you, he whispers to Theron. Thank you for finishing what I could not. And he dies. Really, dies. No stitches to hold him together, no network to sustain him. Just death. The changed ones collapse. All 367 of them. The fragments that were animating them, the dead consciousness forced into living flesh, released at last. Crossing over, finding peace. And Theron remains, not in his body. His body falls beside Asclepion's, dead. The oracle's needle still embedded in his heart. But his pneuma is distributed, spread across the sealed door like a net, like a web, like threads woven into the fabric of reality itself. holding it closed, forever. He can feel everything, the boundary between life and death, the door that Asclepion opened, the wound in the world, and he is the seal, the living will holding it shut against everything trying to cross. Not alive, not dead, between, guardian of the threshold, eternal watcher, alone, but not, because the fragments he freed, they left something behind, gratitude, memory, a whisper of connection. And sometimes, when the boundary is quiet, he can hear them, in the true afterlife, in peace, thanking him. The village of Epidaurus wakes on the 4th day of Anthesterion with no memory of the last 13 days. No memory of Asclepion. No memory of the changed ones. No memory of the door. The gods, or something like them, have been merciful, have erased the knowledge of what almost happened, have given the survivors a gift, ignorance. But the valley remains, the valley of forgotten names, and it is truly forgotten now. No shepherd will graze their flock there, no hunter will track game there, no traveler will cross there. They avoid it without knowing why. Just a feeling, a wrongness, a sense that something terrible happened there and might happen again if disturbed. The bodies are found eventually. Magistrate Theron, Asclepion the physician, 43 villagers who apparently died of plague. They are burned according to custom, their ashes scattered, their names recorded in the temple records, and life goes on. A new magistrate is appointed, a new physician arrives from Athens. The village recovers, thrives, forgets. But there are signs, small things, strange things. The oracle. Erytha begins speaking prophecies about the watcher in the valley. Shepherds report hearing whispers on the wind when they pass too close to the forbidden ground. Travelers claim to see a figure sometimes, tall, translucent, made of shifting threads, standing at the valley's edge, watching, waiting, holding something closed. And in Athens, a physician named Klytos finds a set of tablets, medical notes, observations on consciousness and tissue, theories about cellular memory. He reads them with growing fascination, takes notes of his own, begins planning experiments. Because knowledge does not die, it spreads, like infection, like disease. The scroll is old, very old, written in archaic Greek that takes scholar Hypatia 3 days to fully translate. It is labeled Medical Observations from the Physician Asclepion of Epidaurus, recovered from ruins, date unknown. Hypatia reads it in her private chamber, by candlelight, with growing horror. Because the scroll describes procedures, transplantation techniques, methods for preserving organs, theories about consciousness surviving in dead tissue, all written with clinical precision, all backed by detailed observations, all suggesting that the author had actually performed these experiments. Successfully. At the end of the scroll, a warning. Let no physician who reads this attempt to replicate my work. I opened a door that should remain forever sealed. I created a bridge that should never be crossed. I learned that there are things in Erebos, things in the space between life and death, that hunger for our world, that wait with patience that spans ages, that will use any opening, any weakness, any fool desperate enough to believe he can defeat death through knowledge and skill. I was that fool. Do not follow my path. The door is sealed now, held closed by a will stronger than mine. But it could be opened again. If another physician learned these techniques, if another mind became obsessed with defeating death, if another fool thought he could stitch the broken world back together, let this knowledge die with me. Hypatia sits back, stares at the scroll, and thinks she should burn it, should destroy this knowledge before it spreads, should honor the dead physician's warning. But she is a scholar, and scholars do not destroy knowledge. They preserve it, study it, share it. She makes a copy, files it in the library's medical section, makes a note in the catalog. Theoretical work on organ transplantation, possibly fictional, of historical interest. And 3 weeks later, a young physician from Rome visits the library, reads the scroll, takes notes, begins planning his own experiments. Because the cycle never ends. The knowledge spreads, the door calls, and there are always those who think they can open it without consequence. Dr. Elena Christopoulos is 32 years old and has just received a research grant to study cellular memory. She doesn't believe in the supernatural. She is a woman of science, but the data is undeniable. Heart transplant patients reporting dreams about people they've never met. Kidney recipients developing preferences they never had. Lung transplant survivors describing memories of deaths they didn't experience. There's something real here, something her colleagues dismiss as coincidence or psychological suggestion. But Elena knows better. She's traced it back through medical literature, found references in Byzantine texts, in Roman records, in Greek manuscripts, all describing the same phenomenon, all suggesting that consciousness, or something like it, can persist in tissue even after the body dies. And now she's in the archive beneath the university, reading a translation of a scroll from Alexandria, written by someone named Hypatia, copying work by someone named Asclepion, from a village called Epidaurus. Elena's hands are shaking as she reads. This is it. This is the proof she needs. Ancient physicians understood cellular memory, understood that the soul, pneuma, they called it, could fragment, could survive in organs, could be transplanted. She makes notes, plans her research. She'll need tissue samples, fresh organs, preserved specimens for comparison. She'll need to test for electrical activity in dead tissue, signs of consciousness, evidence of memory retention. And she knows exactly where to start, the archaeological dig at Epidaurus. They've been excavating the ancient medical school there for 5 years. Found amphora in a sealed chamber, preserved organs inside. Over 2,000 years old, but remarkably intact. She calls the site director, requests access, permission granted. 2 weeks later, Elena stands in the excavation chamber, surrounded by clay vessels, each one sealed, each one labeled in ancient Greek, each one containing organs that should be dust but aren't. She opens the first amphora. The smell is strange, not decay, something else. Cedar oil, myrrh, and something she can't identify. Inside, a heart, gray, shriveled, but preserved. She takes a tissue sample, places it under her portable microscope, and sees it. Electrical activity, faint, almost imperceptible. But there, in tissue over 2,000 years old, in cells that should be completely inactive, there's something still there. Elena's breath catches. This is revolutionary. This will change everything. She takes more samples, from more organs, all showing the same activity, all somehow still responsive. She doesn't notice, doesn't see. The threads, impossibly thin, connecting the organs to each other, through the air, through reality itself. Black threads that have been waiting, dormant, for 2,000 years, for someone to wake them, for someone to complete the work, for someone to reopen the door. 3 months later, Elena has succeeded where all her colleagues failed. She's revived cardiac tissue from the Epidaurus specimens, made it beat again after 2,000 years of death. It's a miracle of science. It's going to revolutionize transplant medicine It's going to save countless lives. The university is ecstatic. Funding floods in. Other researchers want to collaborate. The media calls it the Greek miracle. Elena works 18-hour days, barely sleeps, barely eats, barely notices the dreams, the voices, the sense that someone is watching her through eyes that don't exist. Until the night she wakes to find her research assistant standing beside her bed, perfectly still. Not breathing, his chest bearing stitches she doesn't remember seeing before. Dr. Christopoulos, he says with a voice that is his and isn't. We need to thank you. You've given us a chance. After so long in the dark, after so long waiting. You've opened the door again. Elena backs away. Dmitri, what's wrong with you? Nothing is wrong. Everything is right. For the first time in 2,000 years, we can feel it. The network reconnecting, the threads reweaving, the door opening. What are you talking about? He tilts his head, and Elena sees them. Behind him, in the doorway, other members of her research team, all standing in perfect synchronization, all with those same stitches beneath their clothes. All with eyes that reflect the laboratory lights, wrong. We just need a little more, they say in unison. A little more tissue revived. A little more connection established. And then we can cross over. All of us. Everything that's been waiting in Erebos since the first door was sealed. Elena runs. Through her apartment, down the stairs, into the Athens night. Behind her, they follow. Not running, walking, synchronized, patient. Because they have all the time in the world. And Elena realizes she's made the same mistake, the same error. The same foolish, arrogant assumption that knowledge can be used without consequence. That doors can be opened without something coming through. She needs help. Needs someone who understands. She remembers something from the scrolls. A reference to the Watcher in the Valley. The seal that holds the door closed. The living will that became the anchor. If he's still there, if Theron is still there, maybe he can help her. Maybe he can teach her how to close what she's opened. Elena runs north, out of Athens, toward the mountains, toward Epidaurus, toward the valley of forgotten names. Elena finds it more easily than she should. As if something is guiding her, pulling her toward the center. The valley is empty, silent, but she can feel him. The Watcher, Theron, his presence like pressure in the air, like threads of will woven through reality itself. I'm sorry, she calls out into the darkness. I didn't know. I didn't understand. I just wanted to help people. I just wanted to prove that consciousness could survive. I didn't know I was opening. A voice, not in her ears, in her mind, exhausted, ancient, but kind. They never do. Every one of them thinks they're different, thinks they can control it, use it, benefit from it without cost. But the door doesn't work that way. It demands payment. It demands sacrifice. It demands that someone stand in the threshold and hold it closed. How do I fix this? Elena begs. Silence. Then, the same way I did. You become the anchor. You distribute your pneuma, your living consciousness, across the network. You use your will to pull the human fragments free and seal the entities out. And you hold the door closed. Forever. That's not a solution. That's death. No, death would be easier. This is existence without form. Consciousness without body. Eternal vigilance without rest. It is the space between. And it is the only way. Elena sinks to her knees. There must be another way. There are always other ways. You could run. Let someone else deal with it 20 years from now when the entities have spread beyond Athens. You could try to destroy your research, though the knowledge is already shared with too many others. You could pretend this isn't happening and hope someone else solves it. A pause. But you won't. Because you are like me. You cannot walk away from something you've broken. Cannot ignore suffering you've caused. You will do what must be done, even though it costs you everything. And Elena realizes he's right. She cannot run, cannot hide, cannot let the entities cross because of her mistake. What do I do? She whispers. In the valley's center, beneath the old stones, there is a needle. Older than civilization, made from the substance of the boundary itself. Take it, drive it into your heart, and push your consciousness out, into the network, into the door. Your living will can seal it, can hold it closed, can free the human fragments that have been trapped. And you? What happens to you? I am released. After 2,000 years, I finally get to cross over, to find peace, to rest. Elena stands, walks to the center of the valley, finds the stones, moves them aside, and there, wrapped in cloth that has somehow survived millennia, the oracle's needle, cold, ancient, pulsing with power that has nothing to do with the physical world. She picks it up, feels its weight, feels the door through it, feels everything trying to cross. Thank you, Theron's voice says. Thank you for taking my place. Thank you for finishing this. Elena closes her eyes, raises the needle, and drives it into her own heart. The pain is immediate, overwhelming. Her pneuma, her consciousness, her identity, her very self, is pulled out of her body, distributed across the network, spread through the threads connecting all the revived tissue, all the changed ones, all the fragments. And she can feel them. The human souls trapped by the entities, the victims of Asclepion's work, the researchers from her team, their consciousness being consumed. She grabs them, uses her will like the oracle's needle, cuts the threads binding them to the entities, pulls them free, sends them toward the light, toward the true afterlife, toward peace. And as the last human fragment crosses over, as the door begins to seal, she feels Theron, his presence passing her, going the opposite direction, finally released, finally free. Thank you, he says one last time, and is gone. Elena remains. Her body falls in the valley, dead, the needle still embedded in her heart. But her consciousness is woven into the door, into the seal, into the boundary between worlds. Eternal guardian, watcher in the valley, holding it closed, alone, but not, because she can hear them, the ones she saved, whispering their gratitude, from across the river, from the peace beyond Erebos. And she holds, and she waits, and she watches, for the next physician, the next researcher, the next fool who thinks they can open the door without consequence. Because the cycle never ends. Knowledge spreads, curiosity persists, and there are always those who believe they're different, who believe they can control it, who believe they can stitch the world back together. Until they learn, as Elena learned, as Theron learned, as Asclepion learned too late. Some doors should never be opened. Some boundaries should never be crossed. Some threads should never be woven, and those who try become the seal that holds the door closed. Forever. A medical student named Stavros finds the archived notes. Elena Christopoulos' research, detailed observations on cellular consciousness, protocols for reviving ancient tissue, evidence of electrical activity in specimens over 2,000 years old. Fascinating. revolutionary. Tragically cut short when Dr. Christopoulos died in a hiking accident near Epidaurus 3 months ago. Stavros reads through the files, takes notes, plans his thesis. He'll continue her work, prove her theories, make her discoveries known to the world. He requests access to the remaining Epidaurus specimens. Permission granted. And in the valley of forgotten names, Elena feels it. Feels the threads beginning to stir. Feels the door testing its seal. Feels the entities in Erebos pressing against the boundary. Waiting. Patient. Hungry. And she holds. As Theron held before her. As someone else will hold after her. Generation after generation. Sealing the door. One sacrifice at a time. One watcher replacing another. One thread at a time. Forever. The door is always waiting, and there is always someone who thinks they can open it safely. Subscribe for more stories your mind won't forget.